Okay, it's 4 o'clock. We have a quorum present. The Board of Health meeting for today is called to order. Mr. Atherton will not be with us today. First item, concerns of the public. Anybody wish to make a comment on any issue that is not on the agenda? Hearing none. Minutes of April 17th. Those were distributed. Any comments, additions, corrections, complaints? Hearing none, the meetings are approved by unanimous consent. Number 3, variance request 19 and 16 Massachusetts Avenue. Richard.
You have in your packet a request for variance from the Nantucket regulations and state regulations regarding the placement of a repaired septic system. Normally, property of this sort would be eligible for a tight tank configuration, which would limit them to seasonal use at this point. However, these individuals wish to maintain their year-round use of the property. Therefore, a full code-compliant septic system, other than the variance request, is being installed. It is an alternative design technology to reduce nutrient loading. And again, it is a structure on one side of Mass Ave, which places the leach facility on the other side of Mass Ave on a piece of property that they own. My recommendation is to approve the variances as requested.
Does the fact that there'll be cars driving over piping, is that a problem?
It's an H40 wheel loading piping, which is
That's acceptable.
appropriate for
That's appropriate.
40-ton truck.
My question, Richard, is where it shows the well, is that the neighbor's well? Because it's not on a lot with the house.
There is a well on the property to the west of the existing house. The existing well for the existing house is within the confines of the structure. Do you see it there in the corner?
No.
It's right here. It's in the crawl space of the house.
Oh, I see.
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, okay.
And the well is the other.
Well, the other one is the well on the other
property,
lot.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Questions? May I have a motion?
I just have one more question.
Okay.
Who's responsible for this part of this going across Massachusetts Ave?
Who's responsible for it?
If there's problems with that going across Massachusetts Ave?
They own, I believe, to the center line on both properties, and therefore it is their property,
So
it's
it's
their responsibility.
Their responsibility, okay.
Yes.
But it jogs, their property is not directly across the street. So
No,
there's a
that's-
jog in front of someone else's property.
My assumption is it will be their responsibility to repair that, should there be a problem, yes.
Okay.
Does that need to be in, do we need to write that out, or is that just an assumption?
I could certainly include that in the
Why
variance.
don't you include that in the
Be happy
variance?
to.
Just so we'll prevent down the road
Yep.
some dispute with perhaps this neighbor.
The owners of 19 Massachusetts Avenue shall be responsible for all piping and force mains leading to the septic system on the other property question.
Right, and then you're requiring them to have a maintenance contract.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
that goes with that system.
Yeah.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
A motion, is it to approve?
Approve, yes.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the variance for Massachusetts for 19 and 16 Massachusetts, say aye.
Aye.
Chairman says aye. The variance is approved. All right, we next have the public hearing on the new tobacco regulations. We'll open that for comments as soon as I hear Richard give me a little summary.
Essentially,
background,
we
the
have
purpose, et cetera.
agreed to, I've written a set of regulations that, most of which has been provided to me by counsel from Tobacco Control. And these regulations further our regulations with regard to the sale of tobacco and tobacco products to now include nicotine dispensing products such as e-cigarettes It also includes blunt wraps, and it modifies the age, because there is no age right now for the sale of e-cigarettes to 18.
Okay, thank you. The public hearing is now open. Is there anyone who would like to speak for or against or comment on these regulations? Please come forward, identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is DJ Wilson. I'm the Tobacco Control Director at Mass Municipal Association. So I thank you for updating your regulations. Just to let you know, we have 114 other cities and towns have expanded their regulation to include e-cigarettes, and that includes 7 Cape and Island towns. And so that it's been very important to us because we have started seeing national statistics show that in just 1 year, the usage, while it's been low, has doubled of kids who've tried an e-cigarette as their first nicotine product. So we do see this as a real problem, and so we are great to see that that from now on that Nantucket retailers will legally not be able to sell to minors. Getting rid of blunt wraps as well is a very important move to take. The city of Boston got sued when they banned blunt wraps, but it survived a challenge with the state's Supreme Judicial Court, so it's a very legal thing to do. And it's also something that, because of the way that blunt wraps get used, that it's almost exclusively used for for marijuana cigarettes. So usually police departments are very happy to see blunt wraps be banned as well. Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
I mean, just you or Richard, it talks here on the first page in the last whereas about incidents of cigars in the past 30 days went from 11.8 to 14.9.
Yes.
What happened in the years between? I'm just wondering if it really went up or if that's just a variation in the statistics.
It did go up, and it went up for 2 different reasons. Number one, we now have $3.51 cigarette tax, where I think the second highest in the United States. So the average pack of Marlboros goes for about $9.60. In addition, back in 2009, the federal government banned the sale of flavored cigarettes, with the exception of menthol. So those 2 combinations kind of drove kids to buying really cheap flavored cigars. And so it was actually probably 2020. Hindsight is 2020, but we should have realized that no surprise that kids would have gravitated towards a 49-cent grape cigar instead of the $9 pack of cigarettes.
So the trend is upward. That's just
Yes, it has been.
That's just not.
No, it has gone. It has gone up. We do have a policy. If the board wants to entertain it sometime in the future, we have about 40 or 50 cities and towns that now have a minimum price, so that 49-cent cigar has to be sold for at least $2.50 if it's sold singularly, and that's been pretty successful because we know that all smokers are price sensitive, but kids are particularly so. So it takes that 49-cent cigar and makes it at least $2.50, and so that is one policy that a lot of cities and towns have put in place.
I have one other question about you mentioned the blunt wraps. I mean, in theory, since you can't, should this be limited to age, or why do we limit it to everyone? I mean, the whole regulations say essentially
Right.
you have to be over 18. Why is this selected without an age? I mean, that sounds a little
For the most part, it's
unnecessary.
because we followed Boston, because they got sued, and it was the safest legal thing to do, exactly what they do. Again, though, police really like to see it gone.
I mean,
The Boston effort actually does talk more about we use one of their whereases, but we don't use them all. The Boston effort did talk a lot about about blunt wraps being a drug delivery method, but our problem with it in tobacco is that it can lead to nicotine addiction. But you are correct; it goes beyond just youth when you ban it.
And Boston got sued for including it?
For banning them.
For banning them.
I have a question. I don't know if you have the answer, but it came in this email this afternoon from the National Association of Tobacco Outlets.
Yep.
And they're saying, I'm assuming this is their opinion, that blunt wraps, that there is no data or factual findings that say that there's, is that true, or?
Not that we probably have some local surveying done, and I think Boston probably did some when they did it. But, you know, it's hard to, I mean, it's the equivalent for regular rolling papers, which cities and towns cannot ban because you're preempted by state law. It is probably near impossible to try to figure out regular rolling papers, how many people use it for legal versus illegal. And so I think the same thing happened with blunt wraps. But, you know, they are if you Google blunt wraps or go on YouTube and do blunt wraps, a lot of these products have marijuana symbols on them, use words that are common, you know, in the marijuana vernacular. And really and truly, if you talk to your police chief, he'll probably confirm what they're used for.
Any other questions?
I have a question. In these towns that have already included these e-cigarettes,
Yep.
do you have any statistics of the percentage that minors have stopped smoking?
We don't yet, no, because even our earliest ones, yeah,
So we don't know if
our
there's
oldest is probably 2 years old. Though I should also note that the trade associations for e-cigarette manufacturers agree not to sell to kids. So this is not something that they fight.
What literature there is, and there was about a year ago an article in, I think, The Lancet, it sort of suggests in a sense they're certainly safe compared to tobacco, but they're addicting.
Right. Yeah, so we don't doubt that there are far fewer chemicals in certainly the secondhand vapor that comes off an e-cigarette compared to secondhand smoke. But because they are completely unregulated, it's unclear to know the purity of those substances. And if people fill them on their own at their house, you have no clue. With juice is what it's called, juice that they've either purchased online or made on their own, you actually have no clue what's legal or illegal being put inside some of these e-cigarettes.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Just again, identify, oh no, you're not speaking. Thank you. Okay, so the public hearing is closed.
There is one
Actually,
area.
I have to, you want to speak? Yeah, go ahead.
Only to make to ask for a recommendation on a effective date of the regulation. You can
Okay,
close the public.
we can discuss that. I have to do things right. I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion, move to close the meeting, public meeting.
Second? Comments? All in favor? Public hearing is closed. And what is the thoughts of the board?
It says on the policing of this, it'll be policed by the Board of Health.
Correct.
Explain that.
It can be policed by members of the Board of Health or its designated agent.
Which would be?
And at this point, the Tobacco Control Program of Cape Cod is our designated agent.
There would be, you'll have a physical presence on Nantucket?
If I may through the chair, sir, yes.
Go right ahead.
We come and inspect the stores here a couple times a year to make sure that they are compliant with all the state and local regulations as they pertain to nicotine delivery products and tobacco products. So yes, if we found any of these items for sale that would constitute a violation, and that would be reported to Richard, who would then in turn carry out review and then the enforcement phase would take place.
The local agents also find themselves in situations where they are in stores that do sell cigarettes, and if we note that someone is not carded, we will remind the staff and the ownership, and if it happens again, we will fine them.
I have just one more question. Where did the figure 27, age of 27, where did that figure come from? Is that just an arbitrary number, or?
No, in fact, it's consistent with what alcohol requires. The 9-year differential between the legal age to purchase with alcohol
Okay.
Tobacco, it's 18.
All right, thank you.
Additionally, that number came from the first time that FDA did rules under the federal government under President Clinton. So it has just stayed.
Okay.
Any other comments?
My only concern is the effective date, and I did not put one in here because I didn't know, A, if the board would pass the regulations, and if the board would, what they would wish for an effective date of these regulations.
If we pass these regulations, do you have a suggested date?
I would suggest a date of June 1st.
Is that enough time for the stores to understand?
Do we have to give you, can we pass this without a date and put a date in later, or do we have to
No,
have
we
a
No,
date?
you have to have a date.
You have to have a date.
And what if we did, my recommendation would say July 1st? I mean, that just, I'd hate to have you show up on or our policemen or inspectors show up on June 3rd and find something. Yeah, go ahead. We're kind of loose here.
I would suggest giving the retailers an opportunity to sell down their current stock
Yeah.
of any of these items, so maybe make it July 1st.
Yeah, I would make it, my recommendation is July 1st. My only comments is, again, I understand the prohibition of blunt wraps, but it just kind of sits there without any backed-up information, as you point out. I mean, are we here to regulate marijuana, or are we here to regulate cigarettes?
I mean, our concern with that is the nicotine addiction side.
Yeah.
Right, because it is made out of tobacco.
But again, you can't buy unless you're 18. And then the other comment from the NATO, was it? Great. The distribution of coupon redemption.
Yeah, I don't know why they keep on telling people the wrong information. So, what happened is, the city of Providence passed an ordinance that bans the redemption of all coupons for all tobacco products. NATO sued Providence in federal court and lost at the Court of Appeals. So that actually applies to us here in Massachusetts, because we're in the same federal court.
I got you, so.
So NATO keeps on telling us what's happening in New York City, and it doesn't matter.
Go ahead.
Well, my question is, why would it be illegal if you're over 18 to have a coupon?
Because it's seen as driving people to smoke more.
Even if you're over 18?
That's what the Federal Court of Appeals found in Providence State. And as far as the timing has expired for NATO to go to the U.S. Supreme Court for this, so we believe the case is over.
Any other comments on this, on 6 and 7? Again, the blunt wraps and the
What
coupon?
is the process if the regulations are accepted and voted on? Does there have to be a public notification in the paper? Or does something go out to the retailers, or?
No, we will, all retailers will be notified and sent a copy of the new regulations. Yeah.
Yeah, and if we do it August 1st, that's time. And this is a public hearing, they could have come. I don't know. Again, the blunt wraps and the coupon redemption, I want to get a sense of the board. Because, if you're over 18,
Right.
yeah.
Well, can we
We could-
exclude those two things?
We could exclude them if you'd like. If there's a consensus of the board, we can amend them and exclude them. If I'm a little slow now, I'm just kind of debating it in my head myself.
I don't have a problem with it, but I'm looking at it from a health point of view, so.
Yes.
So
If I may.
You're
I-
comfortable with them, Ann?
I'd like to hear a little bit more about,
Yeah, well, we don't have the other side other than their short letter. And the coupons, as pointed out, they didn't give all the information. All right.
I think as a Board of Health, we are trying to protect or further protect the health and well-being of individuals in the community, whether they're 18 or older or 18 or younger. And I think these rules were written to say that anything that we can do to further the lack of, the non-use of tobacco products is a benefit to the public health of the community.
I agree with you to a point, but it seems that if you're over 18, there are people that are going to smoke and they want to smoke, and you can put cigarettes up to $50 a pack and they're still going to smoke, and if they're over 18, they have a right to do that. And if we're going to impair people that are over 18 from doing blunt wraps and coupons, then what's next? I mean, I agree with you. I agree with everybody. I think smoking is bad for everybody, but I think we're here to just talk about people that are under 18. So,
Steve?
Can you explain the coupon thing, what that is?
Right. And to back up for a second, I mean, we probably made a historical error by calling our two regulations that cities and towns typically do, youth access and secondhand smoke. Because we now have talking about sales for everybody and secondhand smoke. So the coupon thing does affect everybody, and part of the reason is to keep the price up, because that is a proven deterrent to get people to drive smokers to quit and to have them smoke less. We actually we just saw data in our last statewide meeting that really showed a big difference now. So in Massachusetts, there is a minimum price for cigarettes determined by the Department of Revenue. And so what we're saying is that you can't use a coupon that drives the price down below that minimum pricing. And then for all other tobacco products, you can't redeem a coupon to make that tobacco product like chew or spit to be free. So it's actually more lenient than what sued on in the province. So the idea here, though, is that the higher the price, the more we get kids and adults to smoke less and promptly quit.
my question to that is, the state is all right. The state has no problem with giving someone a coupon to drive the price down to less than it's.
No.
So the state doesn't have a problem with it.
No.
So if the state doesn't have a problem with it,
Technically, they do.
They do.
And that's why
wait a minute, what does technically mean?
they just don't need enforcement personnel to do it. But that's why you'll see, interestingly enough, American Spirit cigarettes oftentimes has ads in magazines. They'll have a coupon, and the bottom will say "Void in Massachusetts," and it's because of our minimum pricing. So we're just saying that we're just putting this into a local measures to say no coupon. So if a kid gets a hand on a $1 coupon or a dollar, because we just don't want to drive that price down. We want to keep that price high. To reduce consumption.
I don't know if I can agree with that. I mean, I respect that we should try to do everything to suggest that people smoke less, but I don't think we should, in my opinion, that we should force someone that could get a coupon that wants to smoke and save money. I'm not saying it's right at all, but I'm saying I don't know if we have the authority to do that. Personally, that's my point of
Well,
view.
let's do it this way then, because we could vote to take out 6 and 7. We could leave them in. So just as a surveying of the board, if we proposed removing blunt wraps, how many people would support that?
To leave it out?
To leave it out?
I would.
One.
I'm comfortable with it.
So if I would out, that means since it'd be a tie vote, and we'd be stuck with it. We could always add it later. But we obviously don't have the votes to remove it, because it'd be 2-2. What about coupon redemption?
I would want to see that out.
Leave it in.
So it'd be a 2-2 vote on that. Okay, the third option would be to leave them out and bring this up again when we have our 5th member. So what I would propose, and this is that we pass these regulations without 6 and 7, and that we issue them without 6 and 7, and we can amend them again when we have our 5th member. It would also, personally, it'd also give me some time to think about it.
Why don't we just continue the hearing till the next Board of Health meeting?
Well, then you're not going to get these out before, yeah, we could continue the hearing.
That's okay.
It's actually,
I'm looking at this from a financial aspect. I don't want to have to publish.
Yeah, I
it again.
agree.
We had enough grief from publishing them the first time.
all right, so,
So you'd rather see us wait until the entire
I'd rather
board
see a
meets?
full board. If that is your choice, if we have
Yeah, I agree.
if we indeed have a tie, if you would like to wait for a definitive action, then a 5th board member is needed, and therefore it would be held at the next Board of Health
Right.
meeting.
and, to be honest with you, by the next board meeting, I may actually change my mind about 6 and 7. I like to do things based on data. I'm a born scientist, so I have to show me the data. So if there is no objection, and if someone would make a motion that we reopen the public hearing?
I'll make a motion then if we have to reopen it. Fine.
Second.
All in favor? So that the hearing is reopened, and it's not closed. And at the next meeting, we will bring our 5th colleague up to date, and we'll vote on them. I think clearly the regulations will get unanimously approved, most likely. The question is, what do we do with 6 and 7? Since we didn't have and we had, fine. Everyone comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable with it, yes.
Okay, that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
So I think most likely they will get passed, and they probably will get passed with 6 and 7, because I may wake up and think about it a little more. But I just don't feel comfortable. We have one person who doesn't want them, and we have 2 for it, and we have one person that's not sure, so it's best to wait and vote with the 5th member. Okay?
Next meeting would be June 19th.
June 19th, fine. Okay, thank you all. Updates, tick-borne disease video is still on target to be shot in July. I got a note from the producer that he's hired a writer and will have a script for us soon, based on his general outline. The tick-borne disease working group I will set up next week. I've been away, I'm back, and that will probably be Richard, Helene, myself, and perhaps Jim.
Fantastic.
Yep. And the summer symposium, you've been up to
We're
date?
set August the 2nd.
August 2nd.
Dr. Qureshi is available, and Malcolm, I believe,
Yeah.
you'll be in touch with him
Yep,
about.
I'm going to do that. And he's now at Brown?
Yes.
So he moved from
He did.
MGH.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah. And I think we were going to discuss whether or not we had another physician or
Yeah.
another practitioner, and whether we showed teledermatology,
Well, it's like,
that type of thing.
I'm going to let him make
Format.
that decision.
Yeah.
Because,
But I think we said we would be in charge of arranging for the room and,
yeah, if you,
It's very easy to do.
and the suggestion is we do it at 9 o'clock and not 10,
Okay.
since it's going to be a beautiful day, and we'll give people opportunity, after they've heard about staying out of the sun, to stay
To
out
get
of the
back
sun.
in it.
To
And
get
we're
back in
back.
it.
and I think we said we'd do advertising, too. Do we
Yeah,
have
the
that?
hospital,
Yeah, and we'll have a budget by July 1st.
yeah, so
we can-
do a little advertising, and that we should coordinate with the hospital, so we're not doing 2 advertisements.
Okay.
If you could do that
Yeah.
with, who should Richard contact?
Or if you want me to contact Jay Bowen, I can.
Yeah, it just make sure there's, and we'll split the costs or whatever. I just don't
Okay.
want to see 2 ads.
Yeah, I'd be happy to split the cost with them.
And the other thing, Richard, on ticks, how's your discussion with the inns and hotels going? Because remember last time, you all told me
there
that you
appears to
didn't want to
be-
vote to make this a
There
regulation?
appears to be some acceptance of utilizing our information. Again, we're not able to get out to anybody this week.
Mhm.
We will continue that next week, once we get over the busy week. And
Okay.
there will be more, in fact, I just brought down another case of information from the attic, and we'll start disseminating that
Disseminate.
again, starting Monday.
Because if you tell me next month they're not accepting it, then I'm going to bring up the concept of a regulation.
Understood?
Okay?
And we have a summer intern who's starting in June?
Our summer intern is, maybe I had included an email.
Yes.
Our summer intern will start on June 1st. It is a young lady who is in her third year of pre-med. She has Nantucket roots, and that her parents live on island. She will be doing some training with Maven and through the hospital with Charlene, and we will expect her to report to the Board of Health at its monthly meetings. And if we wish committee meetings, we could certainly do that too.
But fine. And then Helene and I met with, remember last time I talked about this company that has meal and a way to vaccinate mice. And Richard and Helene and I met with the CEO, and then the following couple days later, I had a teleconference with their scientist, and I think we're not quite ready to endorse this.
Okay.
They did, if you look, they clearly can vaccinate mice, absolutely clearly. Whether they can reduce the tick burden or the infection is another question. The way they presented their data, I think they're just what we call regression to the mean. Maybe my statistician here, but if you look at it, the one plot that had the greatest effect started with a higher baseline, the control started with a lower baseline, and the control actually went up while that went down. And if you look at the other plots and plot them, not change from baseline the way they did, they all kind of seem to go to this one point. So I told them I'd like to see more data. I don't think we're comfortable endorsing it at this point. And it's probably a year away from approval anyway, so
Yeah, at least.
hopefully,
And also, the mice had to ingest it 5 times.
yes,
5?
yes. They don't get enough load unless they, and I think probably the reason is because of that. I mean, you can't tell a mouse.
It's an oral vaccine.
It's an oral
And
vaccine.
I want that stated, because I don't want individuals who may watch this program to think that we're out there with a little
With a
syringe
needle.
trying to trap mice and stick.
No. I think they may have something. I think we need to see more
It's a
data.
baiting program, yes.
Yes. Okay,
So
Rich,
how do you know when the mice have had 5 doses? You don't?
Question.
you asked them.
Yeah. Yeah. How you doing?
You don't know. And they need at least 5 doses to get a high enough level. It's actually, it's a great idea. And I think it, in theory, should work. It just needs a little bit more,
Well, right now, it's a great controlled environment.
it
experiment.
needs a little more development work, I think. And hopefully, if they can show that it works, that would be just terrific, because it would be a non-toxic way of getting it part of the cycle. Richard, you want to talk to us about waste haulers?
Just a couple of notes. Licensed waste haulers, we came to a final total of 109 individuals that needed licensure. At this point, we have licensed only 20. It's only been a short period of time. We will be going after those individuals and reminding them in the next week or two that they need to submit their check and the information that we requested, or they will be fined.
So they were all notified?
They've all been notified,
Okay,
yes,
fine.
every one of them.
Yep.
They are coming in daily. We get a couple a day. With regard to mandatory sewer connections, the board may or may not be aware that a number of years ago, when sewer lines were run down some of our roadways, sewer connections were initiated and individuals connected. However, there were a lot of individuals who did not connect. We now have a list of 138 individuals who have sewer abutting their properties, who have not connected, and letters have gone out to those individuals mandating connection to the sewer. Those went out recently, and there's a copy of the letter in your packet. And we wait to see what results we have. It will be dependent upon the Department of Public Works to provide us with those individuals who do connect as they do connect. They have
So these are people who've known that the sewer is out there for,
Well, some of them bought property without realizing that the sewer was in the road.
oh, okay.
And so I'm not going to point the finger at everybody and say that they simply ignored their responsibilities. Some of them were not aware. And so we're waiting to hear back, and we'll wait to see how many people connect and when. And they have 6 months to do that, and after that, again, we will send out letters with fines.
Anything else?
No, I did look at the local paper today, and I think it points out what we anticipate and what we're starting to see already in the housing
Yeah.
issues on Nantucket, is that there are individuals that do not have a place to stay initially. When they do have a place to stay, they end up in a structure that's overcrowded. They are living in less than sanitary an environment, and more than likely a hazardous environment with regard to the appropriate means of egress, emergency lighting, smoke detectors. We have already had to go back to a property that had been condemned, reinstated, and now we're back heading towards condemnation again for this property. And I anticipate that to be one of our bigger summer problems, is the housing issue, more so than we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years.
Richard, I have a question, like that article about those people that came over here, those girls. It was in the paper today. When somebody looks for those people to come over here, and they have to do the paperwork for their visas and stuff like that, isn't it their responsibility to not only just get them over here, but don't they have a responsibility to make sure they have housing?
No.
They don't, huh?
It's
So you just
stated-
get them over here and say you're on
It
your
is
own?
stated in their correspondence that before they arrive in this country, they know who their employer is, but they are told that they do not and will not provide housing. Housing is up to the individuals who
Okay.
come here.
All right.
However, most people understand housing as it exists in their own towns, cities, or countries, where it is not the problem that it is here.
Right.
Once they arrive here, they realize that A, they can't afford it, or B, it just simply isn't available.
It's not there. You're right.
And what is available has no means of egress, one means of egress, no windows in bedrooms, no smoke detectors, no heat detectors, no carbon monoxide detectors, and this is going to be the bane of our existence this summer, I'm sure of it.
Thank you. Anything else from the board?
The home rule petition for the mosquito control board apparently has passed the House.
Good.
And has to move on to approval by the Senate.
It's moving forward.
Well, we had a successful program.
Yeah.
Up and running, so.
Yeah.
That's why. That's terrific. I have anything else? Comments, questions?
At this point.
And let us know how you're doing with your hamburger inspections. If you need any assistance.
I have some budgetary concerns, but I think we're going to let them try to play out now before I come to the board for assistance.
Richard, getting back to that hamburger thing like that, how, the public is not aware?
The public is not necessarily aware of the establishments, no. It's a public record.
Yeah.
But the anticipation is that once immediately notified, the health department, as we are, will immediately stop what they're doing at that moment and then get out into these establishments. Again, check the serial numbers, make sure that they have the right lot numbers for quarantine, that they are quarantined, and that we make note of the serial numbers and the mode of quarantine, and we notify the company via email and or fax. which is what we are doing.
And
this
there's
evening.
no pushback from those people, those establishments, right?
No,
Yeah.
there would be none.
Right, okay.
They understand that
Yep.
they have, their livelihood depends upon the quality of what they
Oh,
produce
no,
for a
absolutely,
product.
you're absolutely right.
And they don't want to have the responsibility of having this in their larder.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Hearing no further business, the meeting is adjourned, and we will meet in June and continue the tobacco discussion.
Thank you.
Onto the road I go.
Well, that's okay, you'll be able to put your feet up at 105 tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, noontime maybe.